I graduated from college with no internships, was working a brutal public works role, making virtually no money. I absolutely hated it, and I just felt stuck. Hey guys, my name is Danny, and this is the story of how I learned to code and land not one, but 2 coding job offers within a year from beginning the process. So let's jump right into it. Now, like I said in the intro, before I started to learn how to code, I was working a public works job during the summers of my college career to help pay for my tuition. And well, let's just say the jobs were less than glorious. I was expected to pick up everything from garbage to tree branches to dead animals, and yes, even occasionally
the dirty diaper.
On top of that, I didn't develop any critical hard skills that might have aligned with my major to better prepare myself for an interview or even an internship later on during my college career. Now, while I was in school, and I feel like a lot of you could probably relate with me, I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. You see, I went in for mechanical engineering thinking I was going to be the next Iron Man, but upon doing more research and seeing what the actual world of MEs is like, I decided to switch majors pretty quickly. So in the interim, I chose political science because history and politics is something that I find very interesting, until about my junior year that I finally settled on the area of study that I wanted to focus in, and that area was mathematics. You see, in my first semester of my junior year, I was still on the same math track as all my fellow ME colleagues, and over the course of the first 2 midterms, the class average was, I believe, a 50%, and I in turn received a perfect 100%. It became abundantly clear to me that I couldn't just waste this opportunity and not major in math, and so albeit relatively late, it was in my first semester of my junior year that I declared that I wanted to also double major with an additional area of study in the field of pure math. Now fast forward about a year from that time, because I had to stay an extra semester, and I ended up graduating summa cum laude in my class with a 3.96 GPA, but there was just one problem. I had no job offers. Now, as a lot of college graduates probably quickly realize, it is not necessarily the case that just because you paid a school tens and tens of thousands of dollars of tuition money that you will automatically be receiving a job offer straight out of college. Now, coupled with the fact that I graduated in December of 2020, my initial experience straight out of college was very difficult. Now, while that might seem like I was totally unprepared, I actually had a slight idea of what I might want to do after college. Namely, I looked at the career field of being an actuary. Now, for those of you who don't know, actuaries are essentially financial mathematics professionals who kind of find their domain within the insurance company space. They have to calculate all different kinds of probabilities and ultimately advise insurance companies based upon someone's risk profile how much of a premium to charge them to ensure that they retain the most money possible. Now, the reason I decided to go this route was because I actually had chosen a financial mathematics course as one of my electives, and I got 98%. And so, as a result, I took the actual certified financial mathematics actuarial exam and proceeded to bomb miserably. Now, at this point in my journey, I really had no idea where I was going to go or what I wanted to do. But luckily, because I had worked so hard at my summer job for the past 4 years, I was blessed enough to be offered a position to actually come back in a greater capacity. And while I did quickly move up through the chain and worked my way into more of an office type of role, there was just one problem. I still hated the job. It was repetitive. There was virtually no problem solving involved. And as someone who aspires to be very creative and have his sense of creativity applied every once in a while, this job was just not for me. And it is at this point in my story where learning how to code actually starts to surface. Now, I was always intrigued by the area of computer science. And in fact, I actually investigated this area as a potential field of study to major in back when I was trying to switch majors for my mechanical engineering degree. However, from the pressure upon me to maintain as high of a GPA as possible, as well as the testimonies from the CS students at the department at my school, it really put me off into wanting to learn something new if virtually the chance of me failing was going to be extremely high. However, since I was out of school at this point, I didn't have those pressures. Even if I did fail or even if I struggled mightily, there were no consequences. I wasn't going to lose a scholarship if I received a bad grade. I wasn't going to have to stay up late studying for some kind of final for the next day. I could finally learn at my own pace and learn something that for the first time in probably the 4 years I was in college, learn something that I wanted to actually learn. Now, while I did begin looking into studying and learning how to code, I didn't really take it 100% seriously. There were still other avenues and other careers that I was exploring. For example, in that same year where I was at that office job, I took the LSAT, even went so far as to look into becoming a police officer. However, even through all of those processes and through all those potential career paths, I still stuck with teaching myself how to code, but not very intensely. However, with the experience I had gained in this office job, as well as the preliminary computer programming that I had taught myself up to this point, I was actually able to land my first major big boy job straight out of college in the world of finance. I was going to be able to work with a bunch of finance professionals at a custody bank located in the financial district of downtown Chicago. And from the sound of this, you guys all probably were thinking this was my dream job, right? Well, it was. For about 3 months. See, within the role that I was playing within this bank, it was very similar to what I was doing, just on a lesser scale, crunching the same numbers over and over again, creating the same PowerPoint slides for the same presentations month after month, spending hours upon hours deep inside of Excel spreadsheets. It just was overall mind-numbing. And it was at this point that I decided to go all in teaching myself how to program. Now, thankfully, there were actually quite a few quants that worked within my department that had coding abilities far superior to my own, and they gave me some great resources on which tracks of coding I should head down. And specifically, with my background in math, the areas of data science and machine learning seemed so interesting to me. And over the course of the next 6 months or so, I just couldn't get enough. You see, I had finally found, not even since after I had graduated, but arguably ever since the time I was even in college, I had finally found something that I enjoyed learning without the pressure of that GPA lurking over my shoulder. I took a machine learning course on Coursera and received a certificate there. I went through the data science and machine learning course on DataQuest that I will link down in the description below. I read the machine learning in Python with Keras and TensorFlow book by O'Reilly that I will also link down in the description below, and performed project after project on this website Kaggle, actually applying the knowledge that I was gaining from data science and machine learning to real world data sets. However, there was just one small problem. You see, something that I feel a lot of people who are just learning how to code overlook is the fact that simply knowing the syntax of a language doesn't necessarily make you a good programmer. What's going to make you a good programmer is being able to think like a programmer, being able to actually solve real world applications with the tools you possess now. Having understood and mastered a programming language, that's no small feat. That's the skill that companies pay so well and that they so desire. So again, with additional guidance from my coworkers, I started to focus more on the software engineering side and more of the theoretical concepts of computer programming as opposed to the more real world applications. I ended up taking Harvard's CS50 course, which is completely free, by the way, on YouTube, which I'll link down in the description below. But it wasn't until I came across their website, LeetCode, where things really started to progress. For those of you who don't know, LeetCode is essentially a gigantic online repository of brain teaser type of questions that test your ability to code to the limits. And not only that, but you are expected essentially to solve the most basic and in some instances the more advanced types of problems when you go to interview for FANG or MANG companies: Facebook, Meta, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, and Google. And so as a result, I actually took their data structures and algorithms course that they offer on their website, and I learned everything from space complexity to time complexity to linked lists to binary search trees to graphs and so much more. And once I finally felt like I had built this skill set of knowing how to code, I received my first job offer for a full-time coding role, and I could not have been much more excited. After having spent about 4 hours per day over the previous 6 months studying a new skill, and to finally be able to land a job where I was now applying it, I could not have felt more excited. Being able to actually code in a production level setting and collaborate with team members to solve real world business problems, to be able to just sift through a code base and truly pick apart what the prior coder who built it was thinking. And in some cases, obviously, it's a bit ridiculous, but all this experience was just absolutely invaluable, and I loved every second of it. And things were going fantastic. I was learning so much during the process until about 4 months in. You see, 4 months into that role, I had actually worked with a colleague from that finance job that I had received right after college. And this colleague had actually gone on and began to work at a startup based in Silicon Valley. And at this time, the team was growing and going through some changes. And as a result, knowing about all the hard work that I was putting in to developing this coding skill set, he asked me if I would be willing to come and take on an even more coding intensive role. And while I did take a little bit of time to think about it, I ultimately came to the conclusion that this was just an opportunity that I could not pass up. And over this past year, by simply working in this role, I've learned concepts that arguably master's students in computer science would love to learn. Everything from Amazon Web Services to Apache Kafka to MySQL to NoSQL, Flask, GitHub, APIs, you name it. I've learned so much over the course of this past year that I have been in this role that I truly am just astonished at how far I've come. Someone who didn't study computer science at all in school and did absolutely zero boot camps to acquire this fundamental and life-changing skill set. And so just looking back on my coding and programming journey, here's what I feel like I did right. Number one, I didn't take any shortcuts. I put in the work, put my nose to the grinder, and did whatever I could to master the Python programming language. And I felt like generally the track that I used to get there was pretty good. I started off by simply watching YouTube videos on introductions to Python, which is my bread and butter language. I then progressed to doing some more types of online courses from Coursera and from DataQuest, DataCamp even. I've gone through some of their programs, which are really, really good. I even went so far as to check out a book on machine learning and data science, and to be able to actually start to read someone else's programming in a book format, I feel like it really helped me understand the thought process of doctorate and PhD level machine learning engineers. However, there are some things that I wish I would have done differently. The first thing that I would tell myself is that you can absolutely do it. And that's the same message I want to communicate to you all. Whatever fear you might have about learning how to program, whether you're not smart enough just because you didn't go to school for it, those are absolute 100% lies. There's nothing special about me and my ability to teach myself. I was just like you, someone who had no idea how to program, but once I taught myself and put the work in, my life truly changed forever. The other thing I wish I would have done earlier on was not just simply follow the material that these courses and books had to offer, but also work on my own projects, trying to solve real-world applications and real-world problems with Python. Now being on the other side of this process and knowing now what I didn't know back then, I'm just so passionate to be able to help any of you guys who might be going through something very similar. And it is my hope that with this YouTube channel, I might be able to inspire some of you guys to take these bold first steps in teaching yourself such a life-changing skill set. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Later.